Hello and welcome back to TESOL with Mickey and Ida. I am Ida, an applied linguist. In this series of academic communication, I am talking about the differences between language testing type of communication and real academic communication. In the previous episode, I talked about one difference between language testing type of communication, like IELTS, and real academic communication, and that was purpose, so the purpose of communication, and we looked at the differences between the two contexts. In this episode, I'm going to talk about two more differences between language testing context and communication in academic context. The first difference that I'm going to talk about today is the audience. So like any communication, once we know about the purpose of our communication, the next thing to think about is to whom we are communicating. Who is our audience and what is their role in the communication? Now, in the language testing context, the person we are communicating to is a language testing examiner. So that audience, the test examiner, has a set of rubrics to use to assess a language proficiency, and only that. So while this is also a real life experience, the interaction is quite controlled and unrealistic. In the academic context, however, our audiences are different. We are communicating with academics, we are communicating with our peers. So while just like the purpose that is different in this context, the purpose of communication, the audience is also different. Now, if you are a postgraduate student, say in TESOL, and you're writing an essay, so you are communicating with your lecturer who is going to read your essay. In this interaction, your audience is not going to assess your language proficiency. Your lecturer is going to see how well you provide evidence of learning, which is the purpose of communication in this particular example. So the audience, your lecturer, look at your work and look for evidence of learning, how well you understood the knowledge, and how critically you discussed the topic at hand. If your audience is your peers, for example, in a seminar discussion, they are not going to assess your language proficiency. Of course, you need to have the right language proficiency level to communicate clearly your intended message. But what they're really looking for is to see your understanding of a topic. So you're basically sharing your understanding in order to co-construct knowledge together. It's like a collaborative environment for learning. So the audience is no longer an examiner, particularly focusing on your language proficiency. Like I said, whether it's an essay or it's a discussion with your peers, what really matters here to the audience is evidence of criticality. So they are listening to your argument and they are looking at the evidence you bring to support your argument. Let's think of an example. If, say, in an IELTS writing task, you are writing about the role of social media in people's lives. So you may argue that social media is harmful for people because it wastes their time. Now, you can talk about that in the essay without bringing any evidence to support your argument. Evidence from existing knowledge, evidence from existing research. It may sound factual, but you still need to support your argument if you were to write that in an academic context. If you write an essay with that topic and you want to argue that social media is harmful for its users, you then need to bring support from relevant research. Now, whether you want to look at research from psychology or from sociology, whatever lens you are looking at, you then need to provide evidence. Now, if it isn't an essay, that is to provide evidence of learning, evidence of your depth and breadth of reading to your lecturer. Because remember, an essay is an assessed piece of work, evidence for your learning of the topic. And it's also evidence of making an argument, a well-reasoned argument, which requires criticality, which is very, very important in academia. In fact, so important that I'm going to have a whole new series on criticality and critical thinking. So you need to provide evidence of criticality. In fact, by supporting your arguments through evidence from other research, you are showing criticality. When you discuss that topic with your peers as well, you need to bring in your own insights, but supported by relevant research. And that way, you help each other to co-construct knowledge and understand new knowledge. So in this episode, we talked about two main differences between language testing type of communication and real academic communication: audience and criticality. While in language testing context, your audience is a language test examiner looking at your language proficiency. In the academic context, your audiences are other academics and peers. And depending on the type of communication you are involved with, whether you're writing an essay addressed to your lecturer or you are taking part in a seminar discussion, so your audience is mainly your peers, you then will communicate in a different way. I would love to hear about your experience of communicating in these two contexts. Have you noticed the differences between the audiences in these two contexts and how that affected your communication? What challenges did you face transitioning from IELTS or language test type of communication to real academic communication? What differences did you identify and how did you address them? So please comment down below, and if you like more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and follow our page. See you in the next episode.